What's going on, everyone? My name is Gothix. Welcome back to another segment of Cancel the Culture. I am here with a very special guest, SayNoToRage. How are you doing, friend?
I am good. Thank you for having me.
No problem. By the way, is there a name that I should refer to you as, or just a username?
Everybody calls me Lono. Nobody really calls me Say No to Rage. Yeah.
Okay, Lono. We'll do that.
There
Lono.
you go.
So,
Yeah.
so Lono, you are here on this wonderful channel because you have experienced your own situation with cancel culture. Before we get into that, tell everybody who you are. What do you do exactly?
Well, yeah. The channel name is obviously Say No to Rage, and I do a lot of different segments and cover mainly a video game called Destiny, as well as now Destiny 2. And I've been doing like live broadcasting and YouTubing for 6 years now, and was on Twitch for a while there. I would be celebrating, very close to celebrating 5 years of partnership over there if I still had my channel. And so my YouTube just celebrated like the 6 years of when I started. That's actually how I got started. February the 9th, actually, was when I first uploaded a video 6 years ago.
Okay. Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that you don't have your channel anymore.
Right.
So I guess we could just jump right into it. What happened? And I'm assuming the channel deletion is a part of that.
Yes, it is. So I spent the better part of my 5 years on Twitch streaming Destiny, and got sort of connected and involved in a lot of stuff around that community. And the first year broadcasting, I was trying a lot of different things. And then sort of as I ended my first year and got partnered, I was primarily streaming Destiny pretty much full time. There was a weird instance with me at an event. I got an email from somebody indicating that I had made them feel uncomfortable. And obviously I was sort of shocked and taken aback. I was like, the events were described in a way that I did not recall the events happening that way. And so I kind of tried to apologize, but at the same time was also kind of like, that's not really how I feel like it went down. And then I kind of realized that it was more serious because the event was having like a legal team look at everything, because they were, obviously it kind of felt like a volatile situation. So I compiled everything I could to kind of defend myself, to be like, I feel like this is kind of getting blown out of proportion. This person, had shared a vape with me, and I had a very bad reaction to it and was acting kind of weird. I asked for help and wanted them to keep an eye on me. And in the course of that evening, it was like maybe, I think 30 minutes after, I guess I had made them feel uncomfortable. And I tried to like make it right and apologize, but they also didn't want me to. They told me they didn't want me to apologize. They didn't want me to contact them. And that kind of blew over. Like the legal team basically looked at everything and decided there was nothing to do. And I was obviously wanting to defend myself, because I was like, this isn't me, that they're trying to make it sound like I'm this terrible person.
Can I ask what you did? Or allegedly what you did?
Yeah. So apparently when we got on a bus to go to a movie, I was acting very strange. And I remember acting strange because I tried to speak to somebody before we left, and I was aware that I wasn't making sense. And like I had cold sweat on the back of my neck. I kind of felt nauseous. And so I found the person who had given me the vape, and I was like, can you keep an eye on me? I'm having a really hard time. And on the bus, they alleged that I kept leaning on them, and they had to like yell at me to stop. And my memory of it was that I was having a hard time sitting up in the seat. Like I ended up against the window. I ended up bumping the seat in front of me. And then finally I ended up leaning against them, and they kind of pushed me away. And after that, like when we got there, they kind of like got off the bus and like put distance between us. And then when I was in line to go into the movie, like my friend asked me, I think 3 times, like, dude, are you okay? What's the matter? Because I was like having a hard time standing up. And so my memory of the event was that was kind of weird. That wasn't like me trying to do anything. It was also me I felt like I was sort of in the position of vulnerability because I asked for help. I was like against a window. Like I didn't follow them or anything. Like they followed me to keep an eye on me, because I thought I was having like an allergic reaction to whatever was in it. Like I was having a hard time swallowing. And so I was kind of like, I felt like I was almost like panicking. And so I felt like my panic and strangeness made them kind of panic and feel like they weren't safe, which obviously I felt bad for. But at the same time, I was like, you weren't in any danger. I wasn't attempting to do anything. I was myself having a hard time. So that event essentially led to that community that I was kind of plugged into with Destiny. Slowly but surely, like every single person just stopped talking to me. The story went the rounds, and everybody kind of heard about it, like I was this creep or something.
And during this, where people just kind of distanced themselves from you, was it just a matter of they took someone's word for it and didn't actually have a conversation with you?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
So even the guys who organized the event, so there was a big con at the time, it was called Guardian Con. It has now rebranded to GCX. They were in communication with me. We were at St. Jude and we went there as representatives of this Guardian Con charity drive that they do every year. And so obviously they were looped in on all the emails. Well, when I tried to explain to them, like, hey, I have kind of a side here. I don't really feel like that's how the evening went down. You know, they're making it sound like I tagged along. These are things this person has publicly said, by the way. They've said I tagged along and I wasn't wanted. And yet the truth is they invited me like multiple times to dinner, which was weird because we didn't ordinarily hang out. They kept offering me their vape. They were kind of keeping tabs on me, like where I was. It was almost like they wanted to make sure I was with their group, but then they tell everybody they didn't want me there. So I was kind of like, there's something's getting lost in the shuffle here. They were not interested in my side. When I sent them my side and description of the events, they told me I was supposed to send that to the St. Jude legal team, and they didn't want to see it. And then they made it sound like legal was going to decide everything. So when legal tells me, and I recorded this conversation because I'm terrified. I think the culture's so volatile. My career's over. If this goes public, no one's going to believe me. They're going to think I'm this terrible person. And so I stayed after that legal team. I'm like, I would like to talk to you. I want to know what's going on. And when I finally got to speak with them, I recorded it because I wanted it to be clear that I was like facing this, you know, and trying to handle it. And they on that call said, we see no reason to ban you from the grounds or to ban you from events. Like nothing really seems, you know, to have happened here that requires action. Now, they did say that the events are organized by this other guy. They're like, so it's up to him whether or not to bring you back. But like they saw no cause to like ban me. And so when I went to the conference guys and I said, look, you guys run this conference. You said you were kind of waiting to hear back from legal. They're saying nothing's going to happen. And when that conversation transpired, they kind of let their true sort of, I guess, their true colors show. They were like, well, we don't want you to come to the conference now. We're revoking your creator pass and we don't want you to come.
Huh.
And so I was like, okay. I was like, I thought you were leaving it up to them. Like they're not doing anything. And so can I still come? Can I pay my own way? And they're like, yeah, we can't ban you from the event, but we're expressing to you that we don't want you to come. And I'm like, well, my entire community thinks I'm going to show up. And so I went and it was totally normal and totally fine. Like nobody acted weird toward me. Obviously I wasn't included in anything. They didn't include me in the charity drives or anything. Even now I'm seeing tweets about me that I didn't see when all this happened. And I'm like, and I'm seeing these tweets, you know, 7 months later. And I'm like, but they're lying about me. That's not how that happened. Like they claim that I stole a creator badge and then they removed me from a creator area. And then I said, I felt like I was being singled out. None of those things took place. I had a friend with me when we were in line. Somebody recognized me and was like, what are you doing in line? And I was like, oh, I'm just waiting to get in. They're like, no, they take me out of line and they give me a creator badge. And I'm like, oh, I just have a normal ticket. So I tried to do the right thing. I was like, I just have a normal ticket. I pulled it out. I was like, I have a normal ticket. He's like, no, you're a creator. You get a creator badge. So that's been flipped into I stole a badge. And then they claim they asked me to leave a creator area. I never, ever, ever tried to use the badge in like an underhanded way. I was always in plain view. But now the public thinks I'm this weird, creepy guy that like showed up to an event I was banned from. I wasn't banned, and stole a badge and like snuck into areas I wasn't supposed to go to. And it's like, I didn't do any of that stuff.
So that's interesting because I can definitely relate to you on the aspect of people making up their mind without actually going to the source and getting information.
Right.
Because when I was canceled, it was just everyone wanted to hear this person's point of view, but not mine. It was just, nope, don't listen to her. It sounds like you had a lot of opportunity stripped from you because of this situation. There was nothing else. It was just the fact that miscommunication at this original event.
Well, so at the time, that's all I thought had happened.
Okay.
So for 2 years, I get completely ostracized from that community. No one will really talk to me. They'll be friendly at events and stuff, but they won't come on my podcast. I was never invited back to any other podcasts, and they isolated me. I think they thought if they come, if we isolate this guy, he'll just kind of go away. We won't include him anymore, and all these stories are getting spread about me. And I knew the stories were getting spread about me because there would be an event that I wouldn't go to. And I would get unfollowed by people at the event on Twitter because I have like an app I can check that. And
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I know.
It'll mess with you. Don't do it.
Well, and see, this is what happens. Like you don't know who likes you and who doesn't. You start to get paranoid. So I was always sort of nervous that, well, it's going to come out or somebody's going to basically be like, we hate this guy. We've heard all these stories about him, because I knew they were spreading stories. And this all got confirmed when this blew up, because other content creators came forward and were like, we've heard these stories about him for years. And some of them I had never even heard. I was like, what on earth? Where is this even coming from? So I got really blindsided. So 2 years goes by where from early 2018 all the way to 2020, and isolating me, I actually ended up growing quite a bit. So, sorry, it's like
no, it's okay. Take your time. Take it. Do you need a break? Need some water?
No,
okay.
No, it gets, my heart rate gets really elevated talking about it. So, 2 years goes by and I have massive growth. I get an agent. I get to host E3 main stage with Twitch. That was always like a huge dream of mine. Everything's like going my way. And early 2020, my channel's exploding. Around the time that this happened, I had over 6,000 paying subscribers. I was making well over 6 figures on Twitch. It's how I bought a house for my family. And that made people really angry because they had sort of heard all these terrible things. They're like, man, why is this creep's got it all? Look how well he's doing. Mm-hmm. Was kind of the mentality. And I always saw subtweets about me. I always knew people would say things, about seeing assholes win. And I saw people, the one girl was like subtweeting about me, and then another girl chimed in and said that she had to reevaluate her like past interactions with me. So, suddenly I have this sense of like, well, that people, I guess, are fearful of me, and they think I'm somebody that I'm not. Now, keep in mind, this entire time I'm in therapy, because when the thing happened in 2018, basically went to my wife and I was like, so I went to this event and I got like higher than I've ever been, and it led to me making somebody uncomfortable. And now she's saying all this extra stuff that I'm confident is an exaggeration. I said, but this is something that happened. And at the time, this was a pattern of self-destruction in my life. Like I would go to events, I would overconsume alcohol, get very, very drunk. And it was basically, my therapist calls this, is essentially acting out. It's like a form of maladaptive behavior that I had patterned in my life that through therapy I learned was related to abuse from like when I was 16. So I was raised super conservative. Like we never really talked about like sexual stuff. And so when it happened to me, I didn't know who to talk to, and I was like really ashamed. So it ended up being like this suppressed memory. And I didn't even realize I had suppressed it. And so through all of the therapy, through 2 years, it was like, my wife's like, you need to get help. Like if you're going to these events and doing this, you're putting yourself in compromising positions. Like, look what happened. Thank goodness we were never alone, because then anything could have been claimed and I would have been powerless to defend against it.
So you had some witnesses there that are...
Yeah, like we were always around people.
Okay.
And there are people coming out saying they saw it happen, but I'm like, saw what happened? Like the story at face value is that I leaned on a person. Like there was no... people have called me all sorts of things. I've been called a predator. I've been called an abuser. I've been called a rapist. There are people that think I belong like in prison because it kind of ran the telephone game of the internet, and I'm a big, like, I'm this monster. So like when I see all these people saying these things about me, I'm constantly having to kind of process the anxiety with my therapist about I'm blacklisted. Like I got uninvited to an event once, and I'm confident it was because of this. I just suddenly didn't, my invite got like rescinded.
So I just want to make it very clear to anybody watching this. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I don't know anything about this story aside from what you just told me. I myself am I'm a victim of sexual assault. So when I hear something like this, my first thought is, if a situation is serious, why not take it seriously? Meaning go to the police, file a police report. Because in my opinion, when you go to Twitter, I don't look at that as taking it seriously. I look at that as I don't really know how to define it, but in any case, it undermines people who have been sexually assaulted. And it's very frustrating to me because we already have a justice system that drags its feet when it comes to things like this. So I feel like it's just further exacerbating the problem because we have folks that want to go to Twitter to express their grievances and stuff like that. It's gotten to the point now wherever I see some type of claim of sexual assault or something, if I don't see a police report attached to the thread, I ignore it. I have to ignore it because you never know. I'm not taking any sides here, but this is just how I see it. It's going on Twitter doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. And the fact that you were essentially exiled, just ostracized from the community space and not given an opportunity to speak is a common symptom of cancel culture that I hear all the time. It's just, nope, don't want to talk to you. We've already made up our mind. And about the fact that you started seeing some success after the whole situation and people still bringing it up. I hate seeing, bad people win. Let me tell you, even today I had people on Twitter yelling at me because they're looking at my subscriber count and they're rehashing old accusations. It's like, let it go.
That's what's frustrated me so much about it, is that I always had said, initially I panicked and I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But in the aftermath, I've always said, like, can we go through an actual legal process? I want that. Like, I want this to be looked at and investigated. I'm happy to do that, to submit to a formal process, because I know the truth. I know what did and did not happen. And vague claims were made, and then super big labels were used. Like the one girl, I made a remark once at a Christmas party. I told her I can get inappropriate when I get drunk, which is actually pretty true for lots of people. And I would make inappropriate remarks and jokes. It was just something that I was prone to. And that was all I said. And she claimed that that was me harassing her. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, we were all friends sitting around talking, like, but that's what would happen. Like, they would make a vague statement or a claim, and then it would get turned into predator, monster. Like, they go to the label. So it's like they jump to the conviction based off of like a very sort of generic story where nothing truly happened. We have public admissions that they did this in response to my success. They will claim that's not why. And yet they made public declarations that they planned this for 2 weeks. And it was because I got verified on Twitter, I had a rise in prominence on Twitch, and I had gotten a new contract with this company, Advanced GG. These were reasons cited off like bullet points in a PowerPoint presentation. And now they'll tell you that's not true. Well, I mean, the minute I gave all those pieces of footage to my lawyer and I lost my Twitch account, a platform which they were in direct competition with me, he was like, you now have a case. He's like, because you've lost your main source of income. And I can't afford it, is what happened ultimately. He was like, we're doing subpoena of discovery right now on a business. He's like, it's millions of lines of text from every email ever sent. He's like, it's thousands upon thousands of man hours. He's like, you're looking at easily tens of thousands of dollars just to get started. He's like, and then that's just sort of step one. I spent close to around $5,000 just to meet with him, talk with him, compile everything. And I did send 2 cease and desist to people who were doing sort of call to action. They wanted me banned from Twitch. They were campaigning. One was a guy, one was a girl. I did not send cease and desist to anybody who shared their story. That's not what I did. There's been claims made about that. That's not true. I sent cease and desist to one guy and one girl who spent a week wanting me banned, because when I indicated that I had planned to tell my side of the story, it was like suddenly they panicked and they wanted me silenced. Like
Of course they did.
So
Okay. Sorry for laughing, because of course they did. So I want to cycle back. You said that people were sharing their story. How many stories would you say you read, and were they just like, I felt that he was like this, or like, explain the stories?
So the night this all breaks, there's a guy who sends a subtweet that's like, everybody thinks this guy's a creep, but there's an even bigger creep at the top of the Destiny directory. And I knew it was about me. Every time I had a lot of success, this would happen. There would be subtweets, and it always gave me, like, I would have these weird, like, heart flutters, tons of anxiety. I think, here it comes. They're gonna end me. And people were like, out him, drag him. Who is it? And the guy was like, it's not worth it. And Dr. Lupo was like, it is worth it. Like, he encouraged this to happen. He has, over 1 million followers at this point in time, and pushes for it. He's kind of Twitch's poster boy. And so I know as soon as I see that, I'm like, it's probably coming. Whatever's going to come out, whatever stories have been circulating about me are going to come out. Now, for me at this point in time, I'm only aware of the one time, the girl who sent the email that was like, you made me uncomfortable at the St. Jude thing. That's all I'm aware of as being like, what could possibly happen right now. And so I tell my wife what's going on, because she's well aware of it. We've obviously been monitoring it, and we're obviously very, she won't even go on Twitter anymore. It's just too much. It's too much anxiety. Because we literally had just bought a house, and we're like, oh man, everything's going our way. Look at all the success. And I told her, I was like, this is getting tweeted about right now. And my mods were in Discord. They're like, here we go again. Every time you have a big day, they got to start subtweeting about you. And the first girl decides to like set it on fire by saying, I wish I could just play The Last of Us 2 tonight, but I can't help remembering, I'm going to butcher the tweet, but I can't help remembering, the time a prominent streamer's hand was on my thigh for an entire card game and then asked for sex. And so I saw that, and I immediately looked at my wife and I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I remember what she's talking about, but that's not how it happened. And I'm thinking, I don't understand. We were friends after that. Like, we hung out the rest of that trip, and she was always in my channel, rated me, was always tweeting about how she wished we lived in the same city and could hang out. Like, I was like, we were friends. What is this? Why is she even saying this?
So really quick, when that supposedly happened, did she try to address it then, or just?
Yeah, she joked about it, because it was like, it was not a physical touch that was initiated by me. Like, I was standing, we were playing Mafia. We weren't really playing a card game. We were playing Mafia. And I was standing with like my hands on the edge of the table, and she came over and sat down, and she slid her leg over and against the back of my hand. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like this. Everybody's drinking. I was like, oh wow, that's kind of somebody suddenly touching you. Mm-hmm. And I left my hand there, which I'm married. I should have just admitted, like, oh, here, hang on, I'm in your space. I didn't do that, but that was it. I didn't think anything of it. And I didn't ask her for sex. She was there with her girlfriend. They were a part of my community. They came to my meetup later. A couple days later, after we get back from the conference, she tweets at me, says like, oh, I wish we all lived in the same city so we could hang out more. They raided my Twitch channel. They played games with me. So I never once thought of that as an instance where like I did something wrong and made somebody uncomfortable. So when I see that tweet, I look at my wife and I was like, what is going on? I was like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. So I'm immediately disoriented and terrified that this person just said this. And this is supposed to be, I guess, the starter pistol. Like, you know, drag this guy, he's a creep. So before she even sends that tweet, I was using that app, that unfollow app on Twitter. And everyone in the community was unfollowing me. Wow. It was like they all knew that it was coming. Wow. And I remember going into the mod chat, I was like, 15 people just unfollowed me, another 20, another 10, like just batches of people were unfollowing me that I was mutually following. That's why it stood out. I saw like the mutual check mark of follow. And so I'm like, I've got a beer in my hand ready to watch X-Files with my wife. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do we do? What, I don't know what to do. And my Discord's going crazy. My DMs are blowing up. People are sending me mean pictures and mean statements. So I'm like scrambling to shut down DMs on Twitter. I have to scramble to shut down DMs on Instagram. People are leaving my Discord. My mods are confused because they're like, what's going on? And I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't know. So my wife's trying to calm me down. Because I go from like, I felt like I was going to throw up to like manically almost like sobbing like a child. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, because people were just unfollowing me. I was like, I don't know what to do. And she and one of my other mods were like, the best thing to do would be just to face it and just like try to own what you've learned from therapy, that, you know, you could make remarks and statements that are inappropriate, but like also, I'm not like a dangerous like person. Like I just went to these events to hang out with people. So it took about an hour for the whole thing to run. I was trending, SayNoToRage was trending in North America. It was a trending term on Twitter because Dr. Lupo retweeted it. And that was essentially like a nuclear bomb. He had like 1 million followers. He retweets it.
Wow. I think that for the most part, anyone that deals with cancel culture, it's going to be a traumatic experience, especially if it's the first time. And I thought mine was pretty bad, but I didn't have a creator as big as Dr. Lupo retweet on my situation. So I can only assume it was 10 times worse than mine.
I couldn't even interact with some of the apps because stuff was coming in so fast. Like the app was like locking up. I was trying to shut down DMs. I had to do it on my laptop.
Yeah.
Because it was constant. I've not really retold. I've never actually retold how that all went down. It was like really, really hard because I didn't like, my wife was attached to the situation in a way where like I had to like lean on her for stability. I was like, I'm coming untethered here. Like, I don't know what to do. And I was just trying to stop the messages from coming in. Like that was sort of the first thing that I was trying to stop.
So you are obviously still bothered by it, and you said that you're going through therapy and stuff like that. So how is it going as far as the progress? Are you in a better spot now than you were before? Or is it kind of the same?
I mean, it comes and goes. So like the week of Thanksgiving, I actually went to the hospital because I actually had a coronary spasm. And I've since had 3 or 4 CT scans, a stress test, and they did some kind of a special scan before and after the CT scan. And I've racked up a nice big huge hospital bill, even though I have insurance. Coronary spasms can be brought on by stress, and I didn't properly process a lot of the anger and a lot of the sadness. Like I just tried to put on like a strong face and keep providing for my family and streaming on YouTube. And so my therapist was like, maybe we haven't properly sort of visited and processed just how angry and upset you are. I had kind of shoved it down.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So even today, he calls it a psychosomatic response. Like if I check Twitter and I see people talking about me and saying things that I'm like a predator or whatever, my blood pressure spikes. I can feel it. Even right now, I can actually feel my own heartbeat in my chest. And I knew that was going to happen when I agreed to do this, and that's okay. So it comes in waves, it comes and goes, where I feel like, okay, I feel better, but at the same time, grieving the loss and accepting the loss, it's been sort of like a month by month thing. I lost essentially a 6-figure business that I couldn't like replant somewhere else. If I wouldn't have been able to sort of recover on YouTube, we would have likely lost our house that we just bought. I have 2 children, 7 and 5. And I would have had to tell them, we have to pack the house up that we just moved into. So it's sort of like it's always there. If you've ever been like walking through your house and you think you see something like out of the corner of your eye, it's like it's always there on the edges of like being sort of marked, and like the public sort of shame and like the labels. So it's sometimes it's like it almost like it presses in, sometimes it's better. And everything is wrong that I do, so even getting emotional right now gets construed as like manipulation, so like you can't do anything right. It's still like an ongoing process that like I revisit with the therapist. It causes my wife anxiety, but like at the same time I want the truth to come out. Like I want people to realize that I'm not this person that they think I am. But then I feel like I'm being selfish. I'm worried about public perception of me. I should be worried about her. And so like there's like an internal sort of like battle of fighting, because some people have taken interest and they're sort of investigating it, because they're like, a lot of this, I was basically the catalyst to like 200 some odd claims coming out about other people in the industry last summer. I was the first person.
I recall that.
So my stupid dumb face is on all these articles. My hair's really long then, but this background's the same.
Mm-hmm. I remember that because I have a personal friend that was caught up in that, and it was a false allegation. And they were prepared to pursue it legally. So that's why when I hear stories like yours, I think of my friend's situation. Like, what if that person didn't have the financial backing to even do that in the first place? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What happens then? If I just look at this from the perspective of due process in an actual courtroom, there's, a sentencing with a duration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you, since June, and losing all of basically your livelihood, I'd argue that is actually worse than the actual accusation. Because in my eyes, if someone were to lean on me, as if in your situation, I don't think that they should lose their income, lose their house, lose their career over leaning on me. I would say that now, if I were to pursue all of that to make sure that this person isn't able to pay their bills, I would look at myself as the aggressor at this point, personally.
Right. Well, and they wanted that. Many of them said he needs to find a new career. One of the guys who runs the con, King Gathalion, said he needs to find a new career. One of the girls said he can bag groceries for all I care. It's like he's at one point said something to the effect of, he's a white man, he'll be okay. Like I guess I don't know where I'm supposed to cash that card in, but
wow.
It was like I lost a 6-figure business. I didn't like get fired and I can take my resume over somewhere else and start making comparable income. Keep in mind, this is in the middle of a pandemic. I'm telling my wife, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, so I can just go, am I going to have to get a regular job? Like, how am I even going to do that? Like, what is it even going to look like? And how am I going to earn comparable to what we need to survive? And they were adding my sponsors. They were adding my agency. They celebrated when the sponsors dropped me. It never came across as like, this guy wouldn't leave them alone and they finally had to say something. It was, he's being too successful. Like,
right.
We don't like that. We don't like how successful he's being. And so financial pain and loss of everything was justified because I'm this predator. So the night that it happened, I record an apology and I try to sort of say, look, I was a damaged person. I'm sorry I made people uncomfortable, but I wasn't a danger. Like, and everyone hated that apology because like they said it was alligator tears and people claim that like men can't be raped and stuff. Which as someone who had to process my own abuse, my own sexual abuse, and learn that I had suppressed it and learned that suppressing it created 20 something years of maladaptive behavior and relational self-destruction and all these things. It's like to have that like doubted, mocked, or jeered. They misrepresented my therapy. They made it sound like I was in therapy because of what they claimed I did. And it's like, that's not why I was in therapy. So they misrepresented even like my mental health journey. And so I delete that apology because I'm like, everyone hates it. Like my poor wife, she's like falling asleep on the couch. It's like 2 a.m. by the time I realized I need to like try to re-record it. And I sat in my office. I didn't eat or sleep. I just stayed up all night, all through the night. I recorded video after video and it just never worked. It was like, I'm trying to apologize to stop the bleeding. And so people will, like you want it to stop. You're like, I'm watching my sub counts, my follower counts, everything's just plummeting. It's like a free fall.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt the need to defend myself. Like in both of my apology videos, I'm in duress, I'm panicked. And even then I kind of had the presence of mind to be like, man, I didn't assault. They were saying I assaulted people. I was like, I didn't assault anybody. I didn't harass anybody. Like even harassment by definition, like there was never any persistence, like one remark, one time, one joke or something. And then that's the end of it. They didn't have any proof. If they were asked, do you have any evidence? They would be like, well, testimony is evidence. That was their comeback. And I said, you know what? Testimony is evidence in a court of law. Let's take it there. I'm happy to go into an actual legal proceeding here because I've lost everything. Like the magnitude of what happened to me should require a proper process.
Right.
It's not like I lost a contract with a company and I lost a couple $1,000s. And I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and could have put my family like in a destitute situation. So the magnitude of that pain and that harm to my life requires due diligence. And nobody wants that. Like this independent investigation, there was a woman who was looking into another guy that was accused of rape. And it wasn't covered by a lot of the news outlets. And she's trying to expose the fact that this guy's been sort of insulated and protected by journalists who won't report on what happened to him. And she came across mine and she diligently read through all the claims and accusations. And she's like, this guy lost everything over, she calls them made me feel accusations. She's like, nothing actionable took place, no assault, no harassment. These are just made me feel accusations, and he's lost everything. And he's been labeled as a predator. I'm an industry pariah. Like I lost like every friend that I formed a friendship with over the 5 years, all my colleagues, all the people that I looked up to and got to host with at Twitch, like everybody just unfollowed me.
Those aren't friends. Those aren't friends. Can I give you some advice? I want to give you some advice. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because I mean, I don't know if you know my story. I've been canceled on Twitch so many times at this point. Like the original love that I had for the platform is gone. It's just, I am very jaded by the Twitch community. And one thing that I have learned is that you cannot reason with these types of people. An online mob, right. You cannot reason. They will never be satisfied. And the first mistake I think you made was apologizing. And once you apologize, they think that they can just get away with pushing you around and getting you to do what they want. So in your case, if you really wanted to apologize for leaning on someone, you could have had that apology directly with that person. The rest of the world didn't need to be a spectacle, because that's signaling to the mob to just do whatever. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, stop looking for the tweets. Don't look at the tweets. Don't look at the tweets.
Right. Like, I think I've gotten to a point where like I see through sort of the veneer and the facade of of all of it. It's all fake. All the virtue is fake. It's for clicks. It's for impressions. You believe lies about social media and about importance and and like, does it give me value? Does it mean I'm better or living a more fulfilling life? It's so easy to fall into those traps and believe those lies. Like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook is just, it's like quicksand.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you're falling into this idea of like, oh, I need these people's approval and everything. So I don't even know if I ever want to start tweeting again. People think that I should. I sent one generic tweet. I forget when this was. I don't even know. It might have been August or September. It's a super generic tweet about, hey, for the people that still follow me and support me, I might start putting some things back on here again. And I spent the entire weekend getting harassed. I had to block like over 1,000 people. And so I was like, well, I guess I don't go back on Twitter. Because it's so destabilizing. It's like, you think you're in a better headspace, you think you're in a better place, and like the smallest thing, like all of a sudden I have like this internal dissonance of like, I see people talking about me and saying mean things or terrible things. And so I end up falling back down into preoccupation. My therapist is like, you get really preoccupied with this. Like, you got to break that cycle of preoccupation. But it's hard not to, because we have that natural inclination to defend ourselves. So it's like, it's really difficult not to just go on there and scorch the earth. And I didn't lose my Twitch channel until I defended myself. That was the other thing that really caused me to recoil. It was like July 2nd, I think. So this all comes out June 20th, July 2nd. You said I shouldn't have apologized. A lot of people think that. My apologies made me look weak. And they all went on like victory laps on their streams and started sharing all these stories.
So do you have any plans of stopping content creation? You want to keep going with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, I don't know, like I've even getting kind of bumped to YouTube, I've kind of realized like, okay, there's things over here I can do that are better than what I could do over there. And we've kind of reinvented some things. And I don't know, I just feel like it's the way that I'm wired. Like it sort of allows me to do all the things I feel like I'm good at and things that I love. And people really seem to enjoy what I do. So yeah, that's the big conundrum, right? Is being viewed by the public is already hugely challenging and taxing for your mental health. It can be taxing on your relationships. Like I've sacrificed a lot over the years to build this. But then at the same time, I'm like, would I be satisfied doing something else? I don't think so. Like, this is where, like, I feel like this is just sort of a part of my journey in human flourishing, is to do something where, I was talking about it just today, where people were talking about like the difference of a normal traditional job and a content creator job. And I said, well, content creators, I said, I'm working 80 or 90 hours a week. Like, there's a beautiful simplicity to clocking in for 40 hours. You get a steady paycheck and health insurance and all that. And I was like, everything's on me. It's all on me. And so I've had mental breakdowns. Like, I sit in front of the television with my wife and I'm getting everything ready for the next day. And all of a sudden she catches me, like, she calls it zoning out, or like I kind of go somewhere else. She's like, what's the matter? What are you doing? And I'll just like fall to pieces. And I'll be like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can handle this. And I'm crying, and I'm like, it's all on my shoulders, you and the kids and the house. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can stay in front of it. And like, she has to like physically grab onto me, but like, you got to calm down. Like, it's basically like a full on anxiety attack.
I'm going to decide for you. I'm going to take an executive decision and say, no, you're not going to stop.
Okay.
And I've had those same exact thoughts, because I used to work in corporate America, customer service, my entire adult life. And, I've had those thoughts after my run-ins with online mobs. Maybe I should just go get a regular job, it'll be a lot easier than that. No, because the reason that I asked if you want to keep doing that is, with you going and looking for these messages, and even looking at every time someone unfollows you, you are giving them what they want, because you are self-sabotaging the one thing that I think helps you succeed in your field, which is your mental health. It's your brain, right? It's the mindset. And you even said it yourself. I think there is something to be said about the fact that you couldn't get money out of these people if you were to take them to court, because you are more successful than them. I think there's a lot that goes into just mental just your mindset, your mental toughness, your drive, that tunnel vision. And I think that instead of sabotaging it, you should just try to protect it as much as possible. So that would, in my opinion, get rid of that app. Get rid of it. Don't look for the messages. You see a subtweet, get out of it. Don't look at it. I don't even go on my homepage anymore on Twitter. I don't. I leave it alone. Because at the end of the day, I know that I'm just going to keep focusing on it. And you can get 200 amazing comments about you, but you're going to focus on that one jackass. I can relate so much to how you feel, because I thought that I was, I got canceled. I took a month off, came back, put on a fake smile. I said, I'm ready to do this. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I just went back into that depression. And it was like, okay, stay offline for 3 months, come back for a month, back to that depression. And it's a process, but it also takes a lot of self-control to not have me go and look at what other people are saying about me, because that's the first thing. It's you have to understand, with these types of people, they want the attention. So when you go out of your way to look for it, it's like, yes, he's doing what we want. That's going to keep him preoccupied instead of making content. And you're going to have people that still criticize you because the bad guy is getting successful. Screw them. Screw it.
Right.
You can only control what you can control, and you can't control what other people think about you. Some people do not like me on Twitch. I am okay with that. I don't think this cancel culture is going to curb it all or slow down until people start being held accountable for it. Because you know how people like to say that, oh, cancel culture is for accountability, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say I was in your situation and I had a financial backing to do it. Get the people that threw me under the bus and sue them for defamation or pain and suffering. Because right now there's no accountability. People can just fabricate things and be, oh, well, it's not my problem. Any advice you would give to someone that is currently going through cancel culture, or maybe even more specifically with like a Me Too situation?
The first thing I would say is something that the night I lost the channel, my therapist told me. He said, you're going to be okay. We don't know what okay looks like, but you're going to be okay. And I think that's like a really good thing to kind of like continue to say. Like, loss of job, loss of finances, it happens to everyone. That doesn't minimize what you're going through, but you're going to be okay. Like I got through this. I'm on the other side of it. My wife and I are probably closer than we've ever been. We almost feel like we kind of like got tried by fire. And every once in a while we kind of have those moments of like, wow, like we're closer because of this. Like that's a good thing that came out of it. And so I kind of had to hold on to that, because you don't feel like you can hold on to much when it's happening to you. Everything feels like fog. Like you lose your friends, people you thought your friends, you lose everything. But if you can hold on to something like that, it can kind of stabilize you. Because in the first couple of days, my wife and my therapist were like checking in on me, because obviously they didn't know what I might do, because I would just kind of sit around. And being able to hold on to that, I think, was helpful. Also, we got done with the therapy session, and I had a phone call with my parents, and my mom was like just a couple of really good, wise mom sayings. And that really stabilized me. So, maybe talk to people that can do that are, because it's like that comfort food, right? People should have some sort of a support system, somebody they can turn to ground them and to tether them to something, because you're going to feel completely untethered from everything that you thought you could count on. And then the thing, so with the Me Too movement, as someone who was a victim and didn't know what to do or who to talk to, me being quiet about it, like if I was a 16-year-old that existed right now, I cannot imagine me looking at my former self and being like, what you should do? Don't say anything and then blast them on Twitter in 2 years. I don't think I would say that to them. Why? Because I would say, listen, this is a terrible thing that's happened to you, and that's exposing yourself like a nerve in a way that's not healthy. You would want that person, I would want that past version of myself to seek professional help, go to the authorities, do what's necessary. And I know everyone says, but the authorities are notorious for not handling these situations properly. Personally, I feel like that is true, but it also feels like a cop-out. It feels like, oh, well, because the system fails us, let's just reject the system and make our own system.
And use Twitter instead, because that's way better.
Right. Like, should we all become Dexter because sometimes people don't get good convictions in the justice system? Like, we can't all become vigilantes. So this is a form of vigilante justice. I personally think public accusations against people is a form of cybercrime, because what you're essentially doing is immediately putting that person into financial undue harm. The only way they can respond to the public accusation is a public defense with evidence, which most people aren't going to have. Like, do you record? Do you wear a GoPro everywhere you go? No? Well, then you're probably not going to have evidence about claims made in instances like this. And friends of ours, they had like a relative that went through this. A woman wrote a blog post, used his full name, made all these claims, and he immediately has to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees to try to shut it down and to defend himself. So he's immediately put into undue harm, and he's now sort of permanently, if anybody Googles his name, right, he goes for a job interview or something, that's out there, unverified in the ethos. And I think it's a form of, I don't want to go so far as to say it's cyber terrorism, but if somebody broke into my bank account and stole all my money and stole my ID and destroyed my business, what would we call that? We would call that a crime. Doing it publicly with an accusation, I actually don't think it's not a hop, skip, and a jump that far from it. I believe that these platforms are going to have to undergo some sort of, I don't know what you would even call it, but like regulatory thing where there was recently like a congressional meeting about this, and they described it as digital Thunderdome, and that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. Like, if you would have taken my 5-year business and torched it, and torched my inventory, and torched my records, and all of my customers, so that I lost everything and couldn't recoup any of it. Like, obviously people are like, well, you've had insurance, but think about that for a second. If somebody were to do that, well, you would call that what it is. That's a crime.
Right.
And that's what I think these situations are. So like, I feel like we're getting it twisted. We're like, the Me Too movement like rose out of truly corrupt people in positions of power doing things in a way where they thought their only way out was to go public because the people were too connected or had too much control over their careers. And now it's just kind of turned into, well, if the person's a victim, they should speak out and they should out the person. I was like, as someone who is a victim and cares for victims, I'm like, is that even good for them? Like, is that good for their mental health? Because of what's going to happen to them. Like, don't pretend that you're not going to get completely targeted. You could be a genuine victim and have gone through something terrible. Why would you want to go through that as well in the public? And I know people are always like, false accusations are actually incredibly rare, and they cite statistics. I'm like, I think all those statistics have to do with like when you go through the proper authorities, because there's checks and balances.
Right.
We have no way to verify how many false claims are made on Twitter. I mean, just in what happened last summer, I've already heard countless of them that were completely made up. Many of mine were completely made up or super exaggerated. In the case of yours, I know Angry Joe shut his down right away. He was like, that is not true. He had receipts. He shut it down immediately. So it's like, there's no way to verify that. Like, there's no statistic for this. We're in uncharted territory where there are bad people that exist and bad things happen, but I don't think this is the way out of the wilderness. This feels like we're diving deeper into a chasm that is actually worse. And you're destroying lives. Like, who knows what would have happened to me if I wasn't able to bounce back, or if I didn't have a support system. And the cognitive dissonance is baffling to me. A week after they do this to me, some of these same people are out there virtue signal tweeting and saying we should be careful with what we do and what we say. And it's like, do you actually know, like, the cognitive dissonance there? There's like two brains in your head. Like, don't you see? And then they want to say, oh, it's accountability. It's accountability. And I'm like, I don't understand who's holding you accountable for false claims or exaggerated stories or just things that are completely made up. It's like, there is no accountability because this is not an actual, like due process doesn't exist. And then when someone mentions due process or evidence, people will say, this is not a court of law.
No shit.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. It's like you're taking justice into your own hands. We don't have a great track record with like taking justice in our own hands and thinking like, you go back to Salem witch trials. I mean, we don't have a great track record. So like, why is social media suddenly like, this is the ideal place to like out people and drag them and ruin them financially? I don't know where where it comes from. But there was a great video on cancel culture where the guy was like, they feel that they have the moral high ground, so nothing they do is wrong.
Right. And I find the people that utilize cancel culture the most, I would question how many skeletons they have in their closet, if I'm being totally honest. Because there is one thing, and I know that we're definitely way over our time. So, but very, very quickly, there was this one instance of, so during my, I don't know, 4th time of getting canceled through the Twitch community, I had a bunch of creators cancel me because of who I voted for. And it was very interesting because they were canceling me, and I look at it as just online bullying. I find no difference in comparison here. And only a few weeks prior, these same folks were raising money for anti-bullying awareness.
Like I said, it's cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
On the note of like skeletons in the closet, like I didn't go scorched earth, and I could have. Mm-hmm. Because I never wanted to stoop to that level. Because I could have outed skeletons. I could have pulled things and drugged things into the light.
Right.
And I never wanted to do it that way. I just wanted to defend myself and be like, this is the truth. I've always wanted the truth to come out. I don't want I actually believe some of these, and know that some of these people have been harassed, and people in positions of power have abused that power. And I think some of this is transference. Mm-hmm. And so like, there's a concern I have there. It's like, you're not going to sort of be free of this until like you actually sort of tell the truth. But that's all I ever wanted it to be about. Like, I never wanted to be like, take their channels and take their money. Like,
right.
No, like, I don't care about that. Like, I would just want the truth to come out. And I would also hope that they would do the right thing. Like, they would sort of see that they've perpetuated a problem, not solved one. And so, yeah, that's something that people have always wanted me to do. They're like, dude, just go scorched earth, do a tell-all. And I almost did very many times. And I'm glad that I didn't. Because I just think that just muddies the waters and makes it worse. It just turns it into like mudslinging, and then it's like, now I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And plus, I don't believe in rewarding bad people, or bad behavior rather, with publicity. I don't believe in that.
That's always the thought process too, is like, now their name's going to be in lights and in articles and this and that. And it's like, I'm not interested in that, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the feeling that need of like defense is the biggest preoccupation that like I'm sort of left with. It's like YouTube's going great. I got multiple channels and different things I'm doing, and everyone's like, just put it behind you. Everything's going great. But like, it's like that lingering like stain and cloud. It's so hard to not think about it and want to like try to bat at it, like get it out of here. But
it takes time. It takes time. You got to be patient with yourself. And what I try to tell creators now that are coming to me for cancel culture, or they're worried about cancel culture or anything like that, is like, it's inevitable. You're going to get canceled, and you're probably going to get canceled 4 more times after this, if I'm being honest with you. So it's one of those things. It's like, now is the time to train your brain. So when it happens again, it's just like you bounce back immediately. Whenever I see someone talking shit online, I just laugh. I'm like, aha! And I got nothing else to say, because you know why? I got stuff to do. I got videos to make. I have money to make. I can't be dealing with this nonsense. So
right.
I mean, and like I said, in your situation, and for anyone watching this too, again, I'm not the judge, the jury, none of that. My point being, and the whole point of any of these videos that you're going to find on this channel, is that cancel culture cannot be used as a tool for accountability, because at the end of the day, it's random people, and a lot of the times it's people that have no direct connection to the problem. You know, a bunch of people making stories and saying, oh yes, I'm somehow connected to this because of a message that I sent to him 5 years ago. You're not helping. You're creating a bigger problem out of nothing. And if it's actually a serious problem, then people should take it seriously and not use Twitter. That's not how you solve things. Sorry. Yeah. But that's going to be it for this video. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we go?
I guess I would just encourage anybody watching this, like, maybe always second guess like what you're hearing, because I don't know. In like the 2 years that people were saying stuff about me, like, nobody ever came to me and talked to me, and like, it like asked me what was going on. And just remember that everything escalates. So if you are going to put something out there on Twitter, just know how much it's going to escalate. Like a lot of what was said about me gets escalated into bigger things than it was. And so people need to know the risk involved there, and that social media is a machine that feeds on escalation. It feeds on hyperbole. And you got to know, you're going to say, this guy yelled at me and he's going to be a murderer 10 days later. Like it just absolutely escalates. So I would just encourage people to think that way, and just, I guess, try to be more discerning. Like when you hear something about somebody or read something about somebody on Twitter, how much it's probably been escalated by that natural sort of process. It's like a telephone game that's very horrible and destructive. And you're not gaining anything by attacking, like, because people were like trying to like go after the people that, did this to me. And I'm like, you're not gaining anything. You're doing the very thing that we don't want people to do. So you're never helping me or Gothics or anybody by like going to war for us on Twitter. You're like perpetuating the lack of nuance and like the like dichotomous, like overpolarized scenario. If you want to support people like Gothics or myself, it's best just to like do that, like support, show up for streams, be dope, be awesome, but don't go down into the muck and the mire, because what's the saying, like, don't ever stoop to the level of like fighting an idiot, because they're gonna beat you at it, like they're better at it than you.
I've never heard of that one.
There's something like that. It's like, don't stoop to the level of fighting an idiot, because they're better at it. They're gonna beat you at that game, and then you're gonna have wasted your time.
I like that.
So yeah.
Okay.
It's like with trolls. Trolls don't have power unless you give them power. They have no power of their own.
Yeah.
They only have power that is granted to them. And the same thing happens in this scenario. Like, don't grant these people power. Just try to support the people that you think are worthy of it, and do it in a way that isn't like that, like going out and being combative and nasty.
Right. Exactly. Well, Lono, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm sure we're going to get lots of interesting comments, but you're not going to look for them, right? You're not going to look for them.
No, we'll just let the video exist.
It's just going to exist. Don't look at it. Just don't look. But yeah, that is it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching another segment of Cancel the Culture. My name is Gothics, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.